It's the Kick and Snare podcast. Let's count it off. Welcome to Kick and Snare. My guest today is Katie Debrah. Katie is the founder of Halo and Echo, a creative advertising consultancy for music, culture, and platforms. Hi, Katie. Welcome to Kick and Snare.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Happy to have you. So tell me about yourself. Tell me about Halo and Echo, and then we'll jump into some other questions.
Sounds good. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So as you said, my name is Katie Debrah. I'm from London, as you can tell by the accent. But I've been working in marketing and tech and music for a little bit now, like around 10 years. I started off as a YouTuber. All I wanted to do was get enough followers to go and use the YouTube space, which is now, I think, defunct. And it just kind of snowballed into me understanding social and content quicker than some of the bigger companies. And I was able to parlay that into a career. And then I had the opportunity to work for YouTube and Google. I recently just left, and I'm happy to talk more about that if you want me to deep dive into that. And now I'm doing the entrepreneur thing where I'm a consultant and a contractor for big brands. And I also am looking to build an app called HypeMuse, which will help independent artists and artists who want to know more about creating content consistently, so that they can focus more on the music and not on being influencers, which is where a lot of artists don't want to be. So that's what I'm focusing on today. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm curious about that because certainly as I talk to artists and get to know more artists out there in sort of current times, there's much more responsibility for self-promotion than there might have been at other times in the music industry. And so it's a lot of pressure for artists to feel like they have to be public facing every day, be creators and otherwise, which, you know, the cycle used to be you go into the studio, go on tour, and then you weren't necessarily worrying about that kind of stuff every day. So that's cool. And there's a theme here also. You're working with independent artists, but you've gone independent yourself. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm curious about your decision and
my journey.
You know, what was going through your mind and how's it going?
I mean, if I'm going to be honest with you, and people look at me funny when I say this, the goal when I got the job at Google, I got the job as a contractor, was just to stay there for 6 months. Stay there for 6 months, like really understand the advertising business and then go. And what ended up happening is they extended my contract a few times. I got more involved in the company than I should have. So I was involved in some of the events. I was, going to Christmas parties, which I should have been going to, but I was invited. Maybe we cut that part out. I don't know. But the thing about it is the team that I was on was absolutely amazing. And I saw so much opportunity. It wasn't just an assignment. I saw the bigger picture, which was understand the advertising business, which I didn't have an interest in when I came into the company. I was focusing more on creating content for brands. And I saw the ecosystem. I understood, okay, this actually allows independent artists, creators, entrepreneurs to actually fulfill their dream. But there's a whole engine, there's a whole business behind it. And it gave me agency. And so I stayed there for about 6 years. And the goal was always to focus on my business. But when you work with really great people and you have all that opportunity in front of you, and the salary was something I hadn't experienced before. I hadn't experienced tech salary, and they call it golden handcuffs for a reason. It was very difficult to leave, if I'm going to be honest with you. But at the same time, there comes a time where you really want to do something. You really want to be a creator. I started off being a musician. And I think the stars aligned and the time was there for me to leave. So it was less of an active decision and more a case of, if I don't do what I want to do now, it's not going to happen. And LA, also, I was homesick. LA was 8 hours away from London. I had lived in Toronto before, so Toronto wasn't a big shift, but moving to LA, it was a bigger culture shock than I imagined in comparison to New York. New York is amazing. New York felt like home to me. But LA was like a really fancy holiday. And I just think I'm more of a New Yorker than I am an LA person. So that also factored into the decision as well.
Not to offend any of my friends in LA or
Right.
future guests from LA, but as a
Yeah.
New Yorker, I could relate to that statement.
You
So,
can relate. Okay. You're more of a bagel than whatever LA
something with
is.
sprouts. I don't know. That's what I always joke
Right,
about.
exactly.
Uh, well, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. I think, I have found myself in company jobs, fixed roles for periods of time where I also, I don't know that I ever felt that there were golden handcuffs because I was learning while I was there.
Mhm.
So while some people would say, well, you did this for 6 years, how did that feel? In some ways, once you get deeper into the relationships with people and you get sort of entrenched in a mission, and as long as you're learning new things all the time, it can be very compelling to stay. And of course, a fixed salary, and in the U.S., of course, health insurance and things like that can play a role. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to make it sound like I was desperate to get out. I loved the teams I was working on. There were some shifts, and it's just economic shifts as well that changed my role or changed the focus. When I moved to LA, I was really, really excited to kind of democratize music for everybody, for independent artists, for people who you don't see in the mainstream. You talking about like Living Color earlier, like those kind of stories, those kind of bands who go outside the norm and just really bring something fresh and new to the industry was something that I really wanted to do. My role shifted a little bit, and whilst I really appreciated the opportunity, there's something, everyone I believe has something that they really want to bring to this world. I know it sounds a bit airy fairy, a bit hippie, but
no.
I'm like when you're working in the creative industry, when you're working in music, there's always this thing that's just gnawing at you that if you don't do it, then you're not able to move forward.
Mm.
Um, so I would say economic shifts, role change, and then just this real big desire to do something different, and homesickness as well. But I am so grateful for the experience that I had there. The people made made my experience amazing, and I just want to bring that knowledge and experience to the rest of the industry.
That's great. I think you make sense, and I don't think it's. I'm not sure exactly what the phrase was you used to describe it, but you shouldn't put yourself down for feeling that way and wanting to follow your muse and do what you're passionate about, or
Mm.
you know that's ultimately, I think, really important. And not everybody gets to combine career and passion. I think those who do are lucky. But
Mm.
that also, in my experience, makes for some strange turns of event. I want to say, if I'm putting that the right way, we find ourselves in a situation where, okay, this is no longer giving me the buzz that I wanted,
Mm.
and I'm curious and passionate about a lot of things. And so, where does that take me? And sometimes that's not predictable, and sometimes it's not readily understandable by other people. So,
Exactly,
yeah.
and I can always go back. I can always take the learnings from my entrepreneurial journey
Hmm.
into a future corporate role. But I do think that this is the time to take the bull by the horns and try something different.
Good for you. Well, that definitely resonates. So, tell me a little bit more about the project that you described for creators. I want to understand that because it seems sort of central to the theme here.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned before, I started a company called Halo and Echo, and it's in two parts. One is focused on brands, being a contractor for them, like I was in the early days of Google, working on advertising, brand campaigns, that kind of thing. And then there's the self-service AI tool area, and I used to be a product lead at Google for the creative industry, and I also got to have the opportunity to work on the YouTube music side. And a lot of the independent artists just didn't have the knowledge about the ecosystem, how to create content. And I kept hearing the same thing. I don't want to create content. I am a musician. I don't see why I need to do this. Shouldn't this be someone else's job? And I'm sure you've heard this before in your career as well. And
In
I
my
was
own
like,
band, I've heard that.
right, exactly. Even me, I didn't want to create content because you get so, as musicians, as creators, you've used all your energy to create this entity, this thing, and then you have to then switch to being a promoter, and it just feels a bit, it feels a bit weird, for lack of a better word. So what I wanted to do is take the pain out of it. So there's an organization called Innovate UK. It's the government funding arm. They work on like tech and all these other amazing initiatives. I got selected. I was one of the 10 co-founders who was selected to take part in this program where you create AI solutions for the creative industry. And that's how I met Music Tech UK and Matt, who's the CEO. And so the goal is to create this app that is powered by AI with my expertise and the boards that I have, the advisory board that I have, that's comprised of top Grammy Award winning songwriters, really amazing independent artists who've been placed in shows like Power, and also people who are working in Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube Music as well, to come and create this tool that takes the monotony out of thinking about the content. What should I post? Is it going to make sense? And just let them experiment and create whilst having data and templates and a solution around it. So that's in development right now, but it's something I'm really excited to push out for sure.
That's really interesting, and sounds like you've put the right people together, the right types at least. I don't know who the people are specifically, and to get support from the government and Innovate UK. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's a major first step, I would think, for a founder.
Right. This is the thing. It was kind of scary because I thought I was gonna be rejected, and I was. There was another initiative. We had a huge label who was part of the advisory board selecting different founders, and they said no, this is not quite right. And then I just thought, you know what, let me just take a risk and apply for another one, and they said yes. And so that's shocking for me, but also at the same time, I am very confident about my experience and my skills, and I know the pain point. I was that artist. I was the artist that was in my head, not creating content. I'm a woman as well. So a woman doing production, and I had really great experiences. But at the same time, there's this fear of, am I looking the right way? Or am I depicting myself the right way? Or if I work with this artist, what's that? I'm not sure if male artists have the same concerns or to the same degree, but it is a unique experience as well. And also being British, the music industry is American primarily, and my tastes are American artists, musicians, the whole nine yards. So where do I fit in? Hip hop is an American institution. So where do I fit in there? So it was just too much thinking, and I just want to take that out for the artists of now and the future as well.
Right. That's very interesting. We definitely should have another deeper conversation because I'd love to know more about your insights and how you would advise others who are going through that same process. I mean, certainly self-doubt is not exclusive to women. I think many artists have it, even just as I occasionally get paid a tiny bit, but I'm an amateur drummer. I'm in a band. I started playing jazz recently, which is brand new for me. Yeah. And, having to get up there and improvise without knowing the song and, seat of your pants type of things, it evokes a lot of insecurity. Absolutely. And I think we all feel sort of exposed when we get out there and say, this is my art. This is a song I wrote. This is something I'm singing. That kind of stuff is, can be difficult for all, but I imagine there's an extra layer when you're a woman, and perhaps even if you're British and you sit outside of something where you think that is inherently American. But let me say, Matt and I were talking about this in the context of music technology, because I'm an old guy. I look back to Abbey Road and EMI and all the innovations that came out of the UK originally way back when. Yeah. And also, of course, the music. I mean, an incredible history of musicians and producers and engineers and people who took the technology and twisted it to make great art. From my perspective, there's a huge influence globally that came out of the British UK. Absolutely. Sorry, let me try that again. Out of the UK music, and probably before we were calling it UK, the entire ecosystem there has been highly influential, and even to American artists, like, where would we be without early experimentation and multi-track, for example.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like there's such a rich tapestry of, innovation and exploration, especially in Germany as well. Germany with Kraftwerk and Kraftwerk influencing African bambata, then that influenced hip hop, and then that influenced me. Like there's that whole rich tapestry. So I without you even, if you didn't remind me, I wouldn't have known that. Well, not known that, but I wouldn't have. I'm gonna start that one more time. Without you reminding me, it's easy to get lost in the fact that the music industry right now, the mainstream music industry right now, is dominated by amazing American music. But the story is not consistent, and I think that's the thing. Like when you are, especially on social media, social media, the greatest content creators right now do skew American. I don't know what's in the water, but the Americans know exactly how to create content. They know how to grab an audience. They know how to tell their stories. And so we learn from them. And there are amazing British content creators and musicians as well. It's just that hands down, and I might be biased because I have American family members, but I feel that the American media industry, entertainment industry, is on the top for for a reason. And I think I would love to kind of find stories from the UK, from the R&B hip hop space over here, and amplify those stories as well as the indie bands. I grew up with a band called Blur, who I absolutely adored. There was a band called Oasis. There was a huge battle between with Britpop with Oasis and Blur. Like that's my childhood. That's what I grew up with. Or the Manchester the dance movement as well. Like that, what encapsulated my childhood. But it ebbs and flows.
Right. I think that's well said. It's funny that you brought up Germany. I mean, certainly we think about Germany today as a dance music, mecca in a way.
Yeah.
That's a weird way to put it, I guess, but I'll leave it there. But it's interesting also to me because I wrote a post recently about Kraftwerk. And I shared it on LinkedIn. In fact, I was doing these Friday first groove things about whatever song I listened to first on a Friday. They grabbed me and then wrote about it. And I'll share this with you. But I made that connection between the original Kraftwerk track and African Bambaataa, covering it for Planet Rock.
Yeah.
And I love that cross-border global sort of influence that can happen. Not of course in hip hop, because interpolation and sampling and other things have done that quite a bit. But there's I love when this morning I went to there's a juice bar type place down the street from me. I'm in New York City in Washington Heights, and it's predominantly a Dominican neighborhood, but not exclusively. And there's a shop that was started by Mexican Americans, and they were playing a song that I recognized as a Pretenders track. I'm like, whoa, this is a Chrissy Hine composition, but it turns out it was Selena covering. I think the title is On the Chain Gang. I'm really bad with titles, but it was with new lyrics, photos and recuerdos. I guess it means pictures and memories. My Spanish is not that strong, and it sounded so good, reinterpreted as this, Mexican sounding. I guess Tejano would be the right phrase. Although I'm probably exposing my ignorance here. Please be kind to me if anybody's going to correct me on this later. But in any case, I really enjoy, especially when people are interpolating, covering, sampling, and recontextualizing things. I think that is inherently going to create interesting connections across cultures, which is
absolutely
always fun.
You're speaking to the producer in me, like that's, I was a sample-based producer when I first started out. Before the politics, Kanye West was actually one of the most inspirational producers at the time. Again, this is nearly 20 years ago. Things have changed now, but in terms of his artistry, pulling in Daft Punk, which was mind-blowing for me, because being, a London kid and listening to Daft Punk, who were huge in the late 90s and early 2000s, and hearing that in a hip-hop track for Stronger was mind-blowing for me. And if I recall correctly, when I listened to hip-hop, it skewed more towards Dr. Dre's productions, where he took a lot of like the 80s funk and some California stylistic production skills and put it all together. It came from the disco era as well, because he used to be a DJ in the disco era.
Sure.
Again, you can track that again back to Germany and to drum machines and the 808s and the 909s here in London. And again, I wasn't there, wasn't experiencing it, but I love watching the documentaries and listening to the
Sure.
music and things of that nature. So correct me if anything is historically incorrect.
Please be kind to us. The
Yeah,
points are well
keep it
made, regardless if we get some of the facts wrong.
right.
Have you seen, I have to ask you in the context of documentaries and sampling and otherwise,
Yeah.
have you seen the Sly Stone documentary that came out recently?
The one on Apple, is it on Apple?
I think I forget which service it was on. It might have been on Hulu or one of the others, but it's called Sly Lives.
I will watch it. We don't have Hulu here, but I will definitely check it out when I get the time.
Find a way. I'm sure it'll make its way over there if it hasn't already. It's really good, and it also covers people who've sampled Sly Stone. And my friend Vernon Reed is one of the people interviewed quite a bit about Sly, and he's brilliant on the topic and music in general. But it's really a fun documentary, and yeah, worth your time if you get around to it.
I will definitely check it out. I know that he, as I said, I'm a huge fan of 80s, 90s music. And I know that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis sampled him a lot when it came to making, I think it was Janet's third album, Rhythm Nation.
Indeed.
So yes, I'll definitely check that out for sure.
Yeah, they are also interviewed quite a bit in the documentary. So this is right up your alley.
There we go. Thank you.
Good stuff. So we should talk about Music Tech UK. That's what brought us together, which I'm grateful for. So thank you. And this has been such a fun conversation. So thank you. So please tell me about Music Tech UK. I'd love to know what benefits you see from your membership. And I know you've participated in some things recently, and I'd love to hear about that. And then I'll jump in a little further.
Sure. So as I mentioned before, I was one of 10 founders selected by Innovate UK and an organization called Digital Catapult, who ran the program to provide a AI solution for the creative industry. And we had Lad Bible, we had Merlin Entertainment, who do a lot of the who are very prominent here in the UK. And then we had Music Tech UK, who came and wanted to find a solution specifically for the music industry. And they were looking for issues that dealt with licensing, issues that dealt with artists owning their story, and a wildcard kind of entry. So if you had a solution that didn't fit what they were looking for, they would be open. I think, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it was 500 to 1,000 people had applied to take part. I might be wrong. I'm sure Matt will correct me here. And only a small percentage of people were selected. And you had to have some concept and idea. And then I interviewed with Music Tech UK and a few other people on their board. And from day one, the organization was very affirming. You could tell they're very humble too. Matt is very humble. The organization is very humble because they have powerhouses on their board. They know what they're talking about. And so I was kind of like inducted into their family in a sense. And it was for 12 weeks, but Matt and I have continued, our working relationship, and I couldn't be more grateful because community is key. When you are a founder, especially when you're coming from corporate, you want to have, structure. You want to have, well, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I want to have some level of structure. I want to have, a community. I want to see other people who are doing the same thing I'm doing or care about the same thing I'm doing. And the tech industry is, especially when it comes to AI, is not necessarily tied to creativity. And so that's where Music Tech UK bridges that gap. And they're just doing something that isn't being done in London. Or in the UK. They are pulling all these amazing tech companies who are touching on music. So you don't have to specifically be for music, but you have to touch on music. And they're bringing them together. They're doing events. They're sharing information about IP. They're doing brunches. They're doing coffee chats. You can be listed. You can get some advice from, experts in the space. It's a very collaborative, environment. And it's such a young organization. I'm not sure if there were other iterations before, but it's so young, but it's so impactful. So like in the last year and a half. And I recently sat on a panel with some amazing women who have raised funds, in the millions, or have been doing this for 5 years plus. And I was on that panel, and that was brought together by another member and Matt to highlight female tech founders. And I didn't even think about the numbers and the complexity and things of that nature. We know that women in tech, it's a small number. Then being British is a small number. Me being of African descent is also a small number as well. And so I'm thinking about it from a corporate standpoint, but I'm not thinking about it from a founder standpoint. And you see, Matt was like, yes, let's do it. So there's humility, there's drive, there's expertise, there's community. If I've said that before, please correct me.
That's okay. It's worthy of saying twice.
Right. It's worthy of saying twice. Yeah. It's such a amazing community that if anyone is doing anything in this space, I don't hesitate to get in touch with Music Tech UK, because the benefits, I don't think we have enough time to talk about the benefits.
Got it. That's really great. I appreciate you sharing so much about it. It sounds like it's had a lot of value for you and others certainly, and will continue to. So that's really good to hear. So you, by virtue of your project, you've already identified one of the key challenges facing independent artists. What are some of the key challenges facing music and tech startups right now?
I think it's twofold. I think the first thing is a lot of music tech startups that I've seen in the last year or 2 years, a lot of them were solving for, actually the last 5 years, a lot of them were solving for music production. So we mentioned stem separation, which is huge for me. Or there's a platform called Suno where you can create your own song with AI. Some of those challenges are related to oversaturation. It's related to the legalities. If you are creating something like a Suno, lots of the labels are pulling music down because they're using data that they haven't. It's basically copyright infringement. It's the same thing that happened when artists were sampling from artists and not clearing the samples. So I think one of the biggest things are oversaturation in music production. Like if you're creating solutions for musicians to create better music, there's still space, of course, but it is becoming oversaturated. I think also number two, when you're thinking about funding, if you're going for VC funding or angel investment, there is a little bit of I think there needs to be some more education of how impactful the creative industry is in terms of like economic development for a country. I don't have the numbers on hand right now, but in the UK, the creative industry brings billions of pounds or dollars to the UK, equally tens of billions or more to the USA. And yet, because VC investors who are not specifically well versed in creative or music don't understand that, they may not necessarily understand the equity or the value of a music tech company. So I think those are the things that are a bit of an issue there. And hopefully Music Tech UK can be one of the things that changes that.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the education part comes up a lot in these conversations.
Yeah.
It's also challenging even to educate labels in some cases about how their IP can be used by tech providers and otherwise in a way that with the proper licenses is not infringing and is not a threat to their business. And historically, labels have been very cautious, understandably, about how people use their IP, and artists should be as well. But I guess the more organizations like Music Tech UK are out there explaining things to both investors, to labels, and otherwise, hopefully they can smooth the process for everybody involved.
Yeah, there is one thing that I probably should have mentioned as well.
Go ahead.
I think when it comes to creating a music tech company, from what I've seen so far, you're either someone who is a musician and you want to create a solution, or you're a tech person and you want to focus on music, but you don't have knowledge of both. I think that's another issue that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from the people who've been in the industry for years, who can tell me about the UK industry, the American industry, how it was before, that kind of thing. And and I have the tech knowledge or the creative knowledge or the ecosystem knowledge from a social standpoint, I think we both need to speak to each other more. I think that's one of the challenges that is something that's easy to solve, and it's not happening as much as I think it can do, because no one knows everything. I'm not a coder. I'm not an engineer.
Right.
Which is another issue. If you don't know how to code, if you don't know how to do the tech stuff, it can be very difficult to get your idea off the ground. So
Sure.
I think that as well is a bit of an issue.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, and I certainly understand that. I at times over the course of my career have run into entrepreneurs, founders, people who are maybe technical or have a really cool idea,
Yeah.
but without an understanding of the complexities of the music industry and how the economics work and how IP is owned. People will often say, well, the artist is rich and famous. Who cares what I do with their song? Why should they care?
Yeah.
And I have to remind them, often the artist isn't the writer of the song. They're not the composer. They're not the publisher. And They don't understand the difference for, just as a simple example, the distinction between a recording and a composition. And those types of things often will be challenges in a good idea. But the more rounded you are, the more you understand what does it take to build something, coder, product, etc. What does it take to get the licenses, industry knowledge that you need to make those things go, and then how to make it also relevant and useful to somebody who's a composer, producer, an artist.
Yeah,
there's a lot there, and it's hard to get it all right.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to sit here and say I've got it all right at all. I think I'm lucky to have had the lay of the land, and there's some things that, I've had a very interesting career. I have a law degree, I've done legal stuff, then I quickly pivoted to being a content creator, then worked at Google and all these other places. So I have a good understanding of where I fit, but the music industry as a whole is messy. It's a messy, really exciting, but messy industry for several different reasons. So I would actually say that's the biggest problem, is you try to solve for one thing in the music industry, but it can be more complex because of the messiness and the excitement and, just the way it's structured, I think. So yeah, but it's an exciting place to be. And I don't solely focus on the music industry, but I would not be doing this if I didn't at least touch it or at least work with it, because it's so exciting. It's so fun.
Very good. I think we're going to leave it there because I love your last statement.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. This is really a fun conversation and interesting for me. So I really appreciate it. And it's good to hear more, not only about what you're doing, but your thoughts on the industry overall. I mean, the broadest sense of the industry, and to learn a little bit more about your musical taste. And of course, the benefits and the fun being involved in Music Tech UK. So I thank you for being here, especially on a Friday.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.